All right, mic check, I'm good. So I'm Ceron, CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. My name is Ceron, and I am always climbing every mountain and swimming through every river on this nation and beautiful world of ours to try to find the best talents and stories I can find. Today, during our wonderful seasonal break of Christmas to New Year's, we are recording a show here on the 29th of December with Riley McElroy coming to us from Calgary, Alberta. Riley, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's fantastic. And for the listeners, if you notice my voice is off, it's been a long week. All right. So I'm going to try to hold on. Hopefully my voice doesn't out on me, but we're going to do this, right, Riley? We're going to do this.
Oh, yeah. We're going to power through.
All right. Perfect. So, Riley, how's Calgary? How's Christmas? Tell us about this last week. How's it been?
It's been relaxing. It's been great. I got the week off work, so I got to hang out with the family and eat lots of really good food. So I'm quite happy about that.
What is the traditional food eaten in the McElroy household over the season?
It's either turkey or ham. We always do a Christmas Eve dinner, usually just with the immediate family. So my mom, my dad, and my older brother. And then we usually go to my aunts or my grandparents for the actual Christmas dinner day. And it's just a lot of food and a lot of naps taken from eating so much turkey. So
Well, where did you guys go this year? To the aunts or to the grandparents?
grandparents. Yeah.
And they're good?
Oh, yeah. No, doing really well. So.
And I got to ask, out of your Christmas presents, what was the best one you got?
So my family doesn't really do the gifts because we're all grown adults. It's like if I need it, I'll go and buy it. Kind of deal.
You're one of those families. Okay.
So our gift to each other is not making each other have to go gift shopping. It's not something we all really enjoy. It's more of getting to see each other and spending time. That's where we're all kind of at.
So you didn't get a single gift is what you're telling me.
I got one gift. I got a pair of socks, and I love socks. I was so happy about it.
Socks
It's
are
funny, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, socks. What a gift. And now I'm an adult, and I'm like, socks. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I'm on the other end of that, man. I love shopping. I'm a shopaholic. If anyone knows me, I could spend the whole day at the mall. I love shopping. I start planning out Christmas gifts like 6 months in advance. And I've had people try to cap me and be like, no more than $20 or, don't buy for that person. And I'm like, screw all your rules, down with the hierarchy of this madness. And I just buy what I want when I want. And I buy everyone gifts, as many gifts as I can. I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm always super awkward with gifts. I love people who are like, I love gifts. I love giving. I love seeing the reaction. And I'm over here going, I have too much anxiety. What if I get the wrong thing? What if somebody else got them that earlier? And then I'm the one handing. It's too much for me. I'm like, I'm here. I want to spend quality time with you. That is your gift. You have to put up with me.
Well, I feel really shallow now and non-appreciative. So for all the people I buy gifts to, I actually do care about you as well. I'm sorry. No.
That's one of the 5 love languages, though, okay? Like, some people it's quality time. Some people it's the gifts. Like, it just depends on where you're at.
Yeah,
you got to find people
100%.
that appreciate your love language.
So aside from Christmas, you got the week off. Or how much time off did you get over the season?
So I got last Friday, and I'll go back on the 2nd. I go back to work.
Okay, same as pretty much everybody. So, where is the break from? What do you do?
So I'm working in a pressure shop. I'm working at Exchangers Industries in Calgary. And actually, if we didn't get a certain job finished, I was going to have to come in Wednesday and Thursday of this week to work. So there's quite the incentive to get it done.
So you're in Calgary, Alberta. You're a welder. And as people that are outside of Alberta may or may not know, in Alberta, welding is a compulsory trade, right? So as a compulsory trade, that means that you had to go through the entire apprenticeship program in order to be welding now, to do the job as a welder. So let's go back in time and figure out when Riley decided she wanted to be a welder, because it's something that you got to do school for in Alberta to do. It's not like I'm in Saskatchewan, you can just like go out and get a job as a laborer and slide into welding. In Alberta, you kind of have to go through the whole proper process. So, when did Riley realize that, hey, welding is something I want to do? Or how did you figure that out?
So the high school that I went to, I was accepted into their PVA program, which is the Performing and Visual Arts program. I went under for artwork, so like sculptures, drawing, painting, that sort of thing. And my older brother was taking welding and auto body at the Career and Technologies Center. That's right across the parking lot from my high school. I was like, oh, well, I'll take welding class. Why not? And the very first project we did was a metal rose. And I was like, I can do metal sculptures. This is really cool. Mm-hmm. So that really sparked the interest for it. And all through for grade 11 and even like a bit of grade 12, I was like, oh, I'll just do welding as a backup plan. I had taken so many blocks of welding that they were running out of material to give me. And grade 12, I actually challenged my first year of welding. And then after graduating high school, I went to the Boilermakers. Kayla came in and gave a presentation, which for seeing you don't meet very many women that are welders to begin with, yet alone have one come and talk to you in school. So I knew there was female welders. I knew there was a possibility of me being able to go and do that. But I'd never met somebody who was a female welder. And it was really moving for me. I'm like, this is possible. I can actually do this.
Yeah.
So and
Kayla's awesome.
Oh, she's amazing. She has been such an amazing mentor and an amazing representation of a woman in the trades.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's back up. You're an artist. You probably figured out early in your life that you liked art, because people that are usually artsy are pretty artsy since they're kids. Speaking as a non-artsy person, I was never artsy, so I get it. I saw it in other people. Now, when you were in these arts programs, or you enrolled in this arts program and you decided to take a welding class, was that because your brother was already in welding? Was there other welding influences in your life? Why, what was that initial pull towards the welding?
Well, I got an older brother, and so I'd always see my dad working on the cars or fixing things around the house with my brother. And I always felt really left out, and I wanted to be a part of it because I'm a bit of a daddy's girl. Mm-hmm. And my mom was also raised she was one of 3 sisters. So when something needed done, she was the one that was helping grandpa out. So that's kind of, I got that. I have a very independent, self-sufficient mom, and I have a very handy dad. So it was just kind of, it made sense. I liked working with my hands. I had the visual,
acuity,
the visual arts. Yeah. So that's just kind of how it came about. It was cool. My brother really likes it. I'll give it a shot.
So did your brother
just kind of took off?
Did your brother follow through with it?
No, my brother's actually a heavy duty mechanic.
Oh.
Yeah. So when he's working with the company he works with, he does a little bit of welding on stuff when it just needs to be put back together. And he does auto body on stuff when guys, scrape the paint off, dent fenders, other stuff like that. So he's also very, very handy. So
the program you had in high school, it must have been a pretty good program that you could challenge your level 1, like your first block right out of grade 12 or before you even done grade 12. Is that something that's standard across Alberta, or is it something unique to your area or your school?
I don't know across the province, to be 100% honest. But I know that there are a few high schools that are now starting to offer it. Mm-hmm. And so my teachers were Travis Boyce, Ron Blazek, and Ray Rhodes, who are absolutely phenomenal mentors and amazing, amazing instructors. And So basically how they ran that is we got the material. We went to I think he pre-bought the books or we bought the books and they got delivered. And then so we sat there with this massive stack of books and we had 4 blocks in a total day. We'd spend 1 block working on the theory portion, which is like an hour and a half. And then we'd spend an hour and a half in the shop for a whole semester. And that was how we challenged it. I think I was one of 12 that did the actual course. And I think 9 of us passed challenging it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think we need to have more opportunities like that. If we're in such a demand for welders and for people in the trades, having that opportunity for them to challenge it. I mean, why wouldn't we be giving them that opportunity?
I think it is happening across the country. I know there's a lot of programs coming up that I see where it's opportunities for people to get ahead in the program. There is some inherent issues with that, and maybe you're a good person to discuss, because there's the concept of maturity. Like, are you mature enough at 16, 17 years old to have that first block and get out there and be in the trades? And especially as a female, 17-year-old Riley getting your first work term out and through apprenticeship, what was that like? Obviously, Boilermakers gives you quite a bit of protection, because the Boilermakers are a very strong union, and they protect their own. It would be much different for someone just going out into industry on their own. But for you, did you find any issues in terms of maturity?
So again, that was one of the big reasons why I did go with the Boilermakers, is having that fear, because there was such a, there's still a bad stigma around the trades.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still somebody who didn't know much better. When I went out into industry, I was 18, just graduated high school, took the summer off, I didn't know anything. It was I'm not going to play. When you're a first year, for me, at least when I was a first year, it was constantly scared that you're going to mess up, kill somebody, kill yourself. There was just that fear, and then the second year is when you get a bit cocky, and third year where it's okay,
chill out.
Everything just settles down. Yeah. You know what you're doing. Yeah. So that was it for me. But I think every person is different. And I know talking with other people, it depends. We just had all these kids come out of COVID as well, the way everything went like that. So that really messed with a lot of kids and their social skills and maturity. So it's really hard to say. I think it's more of a base by basis kind of thing. I think if you have the personality for it, then you're all right. Then again, I've also worked with 40-year-old men who have the, mindset of a 14-year-old. So I don't know. Yeah. It's hard to say, right? So
now, do you think that if Kayla wouldn't have been the person to speak to you guys, you would have had the same influence towards the Boilermakers? Had you already been thinking about the Boilermakers and she kind of sealed the deal, or,
So I did the weld rodeo when I was in grade 11. So I had been to the testing facility. I got to see everything, got to compete, won some really awesome stuff. And it was in the back of my mindset, but like you were saying, Kayla really sealed the deal for me. Honestly, I think back on this a lot. I honestly don't know where I would have been if I didn't join the Boilermakers. I don't know how easy I would have found employment being an 18-year-old girl who, knows the bare minimum, can weld well enough to pass a first year test. I have no idea.
Had you thought about the other unions at all, like the pipe fitters or the iron workers or millwrights or anything like that? Not really.
I didn't know of any of them. The Boilermakers were the only ones that had presented themselves to me. If I did my own digging, I'm sure I would have found other unions. But there was no upfront, I don't want to say advertisement, but kind of hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. Come join us. There was none of that going on. It was kind of go and find your own way.
Yeah. And it's such a turn, because I've been in welding for 30 years. My dad was a Boilermaker. I was never really union. I did a little bit with the pipe fitters and a little bit with the iron workers throughout my career, but never really stuck with a union. So I kind of have all the angles in my career that I've kind of seen. And throughout my 30 years, the Boilermakers were kind of hard to get into. They were very like specific about their numbers. They were very like cautious about taking on too many people. They wanted to protect the work, protect the jobs, which everyone understands. That's how unions run. They got to, be careful.
Yeah.
But really in this last, I'd say 5-6 years, I've seen a lot of people, even a lot of people on this show, be like, hey, the Boilermakers came in our school, or the Boilermakers came. The CWB right now is working with the Boilermakers on a UTIP program. We're training Boilermakers across the country. And it's like, is there that much work for Boilermakers right now? Like, is it just an insane amount of, under 2-inch pressure welding that needs to be happening, which is kind of the Boilermaker shtick, right? Because anything over 2 inches is going to be a pipe fitter, and anything structural is going to be an iron worker. So is there, in your experience, in your time, is there that much work?
So I spent my 3 years of my apprenticeship out in the field, and I'm right now working in a shop. So I honestly can't speak of right now, but as of last year, we were having jobs that had retention bonuses on them. Like, as long as you don't get fired and you don't quit and you stay and you do your job well, you get a retention bonus. I think only just last year jobs kind of stopped doing that. But I think that was also kind of getting back into the normal pace of things from, again, COVID kind of threw a wrench in everybody's plans, especially for shutdowns.
Yeah.
So I see that we do have a lot of work coming through, like when it's our actual season for working.
Yeah.
There's a lot coming through, and it's nice knowing that we have that many people advertising for the Boilermakers to get new people in. Because again, the rate of people joining the trades in general is less than the amount that is leaving, which, that's lost knowledge.
That's something that comes up a lot, is kind of like the knowledge hoarding of the older generations and how they're not great. And it's, I almost put myself in that older generation, because I used to be like, those damn boomers. But now it's like, well, the boomers are kind of gone. Like, they're kind of gone now. So it's my Gen X, generation. We're coming up on the 50s. We're getting close to retirement age, and I never considered myself to be a retention, hoarder or a knowledge hoarder, because I love teaching. I love sharing. But when I look around my age group, I think I do see it. In your experience as a young person coming up in the trades, do you see it still happening? Do you still see like the 50-year-olds being like, we don't want to teach you, or is it pretty open now?
Most people think being a female in the industry, you're kind of at a disadvantage for a lot of things. But in that case, I think I'm at more of an advantage. Guys are more willing to help me if I reach out and say, hey, I'm struggling with this joint. I'm not really sure what to do with this. They're like, okay, this is a trick for this. This is how you do that. Try this. For the most part, I haven't had an issue. And again, there's, bad eggs everywhere you go. Yeah. So there's going to be a few guys that just tell you to go pound sand, and to that, you just say it right back. So,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, screw you. Okay, well, we're even now. I'll go find somebody else that's going to be useful. So,
did you struggle much with school? Through the blocks. You talk about your 3 blocks, and what was that journey like?
Well, it's so funny when you look at the stack of books that you go through. First year is like this absolute mountain. Second year is like, it's okay, and then third year it's like, where's the material?
Give me more.
Compared to the rest of them. First year, because I challenged, was extremely difficult. I'm not even gonna lie or sugarcoat that. It was really hard because most people, again, through their apprenticeship, they go and work for a bit and then they go to school. I'm this high school student who has no practical application other than welding in a booth in my high school. So that was really difficult, but it was in some ways nice having that. Now I had the knowledge. So when I went to the field and looked at something, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what that is, because it was kind of a toss up. Yeah.
So. And where's the hall located? You're part of 146, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we have our main hall located in Edmonton, which has our beautiful practicing facility for a lot of things, not just welding, but it's also for rigging and a few other amazing courses we have. And then we have our practicing and testing facility here in Calgary.
Okay. So it's one union for the whole province, or is there a second Boilermakers union? No, just one?
Yeah. So Alberta's most provinces only have one main kind of headquarters for their local, but we have two just because of how much work is in Alberta and how many of us are just so spread out. It's just easier to have us in those two big city hubs.
And what was the first jobs you got? You know, you said in the first couple of years you were doing a lot of field work and out on the road, which, you know, most people cut their teeth on the road. You know, I did, most people do. So what were those jobs like? What were the type of jobs you'd get?
Dirty jobs. It was dirty. It wasn't like this clean shop where you show up, your welding machine's right next to you. No, it's you're lugging cable all the way up. You're setting up for a job that night shift is going to do. You know, I learned so many different skills out in the field that I would have never learned in the shop because how things roll is so completely different. Like, if you're grinding something, you have to have not only your spark watch there if it's outside the vessel, or if you're inside, you need your man watch. And then you have to have your QC standing there, and usually your NDT guy. So you got 2 to 3 people always watching you while you work.
Yeah.
So.
And did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy that environment? Do you miss being in the field?
I do. I miss because there was always the buddy system. You don't go anywhere in the plant by yourself. Just a safety thing. Because if you go down, who's going to find you? So that's why you always go in too. So you always had somebody to talk to. You always had someone to bounce ideas off of if something wasn't going right and you needed help or something, you wanted to learn what this unit was doing. You could always ask the journeyman you were working with, and they were like, oh, this unit does this. This is the processing for whatever. So I really enjoyed that kind of one-on-one and working as a team. Again, if you already know what you're doing, some people are like, this is my way to do it. It's the only way. I like learning all the ways. If I can learn a million ways to do one thing, I feel like I'm set. Because if you only know one way to do it, if something goes wrong, you can't do it that way, you're hooped.
So aside from the books for that first year, it sounds to me like you had a pretty good apprenticeship journey, like fun jobs, learned lots. Year 2 and year 3 weren't too bad. Were there no real obstacles that popped up that you're like, oh man, why am I doing this? Why did I pick this career?
So the one downside about being in the field as an apprentice is you have to have a ticket to weld. If you want to weld on something, you have to have your CWB ticket as your first year. And as a second year, I got my C pressure. So when I went into my third year job, I actually did the UTIP course at the hall. It was an amazing course, really enjoyed it. But I went out into the field because I had my C pressure. It was kind of like, okay, well, we can test her, but we got to jump through all these hoops to get the paperwork so she can just weld on site, period, get alone the company. And it was a lot of hoops to jump through, but hopefully for the next round of people going through all of those courses, it just gets a lot easier because I was the first group to go through the Calgary halls. We were kind of the guinea pigs for it. But it's just, the one downside was there wasn't as many welding opportunities.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be welding every single day, that just wasn't the place for it.
Yeah.
But I got to learn rigging. I got to learn fitting. I learned so many other amazing skills that I wouldn't have learned if I wasn't out in the field. So now I'm just kind of backstepping and learning the other skills now.
So explain to people that are listening, because every province is different and around the world it's different, the difference between a C pressure and a B pressure, and and is there an A pressure, is there a Z pressure? I don't know, like what are the differences, because even in Saskatchewan we have a different system of qualifying our pressure tickets.
Oh, okay. Well,
Alberta's the only place that does it like that.
Okay, well, I'll tell mine first and then you tell yours. I'm actually really interested to hear that. So in Alberta, we have our B ticket, which is your B pressure. You can weld on any pressure vessel as long as you have the specific. So if it's an Inconel pressure vessel, you'll need to have your separate Inconel techs for that. But your B pressure is just kind of like I'm allowed to weld on pressure. Now you do smaller bored pipes to give you your specifics what you're testing for. Are you testing for stainless? Are you testing for carbon? Are you testing for Inconel? Whatever. So you do your initial test, and that basically says you are capable of doing the smaller tests, and then they just do the smaller tests for you afterwards. So that B pressure ticket is with you for life unless you mess up majorly multiple times in a row, and then they take it back.
So do you have to retest it every now and then?
Your initial B, you do not need to retest. It's an 8-inch 5G. So again, you put it up in the 2G, do your quarter section, and then you flip it down into the 5G and finish welding it out.
So what's a C pressure ticket then?
A C pressure ticket is it's a baby B ticket. It's the ticket you can get as an apprentice before you're a journeyman. It's kind of like so the difference is the exact same weld test. The B pressure, it is 8 coupons that are cut out and bent. The C pressure is 6 coupons that are cut out and bent.
Okay.
Don't ask me which 2 they decided to take out for the C pressure, because I can't tell you. I have no recollection of it. I know that I had 8 cut for mine when I did my C pressure. They were just like, no, we're cutting 8 for you, because everybody else was doing their B. So they're like, we're just going to keep it simple.
Yeah.
What if I failed in those 2 spots? I mean, come on, guys.
So you don't have. I find it very interesting that you don't have to recert, like every 2 to 3 years.
Smaller bore stuff.
Okay.
So like your 2-inch and stuff is your recert. So for your carbon, your 3F, 4F, those, again, the smaller bores, those you retest every 2 years, I believe, to be out into the field. And again, when we, as Boilermakers, when we go into the field, we get job tested every job. So I could have worked 2 weeks at one job, did a weld test for it, and now I have to go work 2 weeks somewhere else and do another weld test. So it's not like in the shops where you do your one weld test and you're good for a year, 2 years, and then they'll test you again. So you're constantly testing.
Yeah. So in Saskatchewan, it's an initial 6. The initial 6-inch is your 2G, 5G with your 6 cutouts, bends. And that is considered your basic. So it's like your basic pressure ticket is just a 6-inch. And you can go you could do a Sked 40 or no, a Sked 80. So you get a max deposit on it on a 6-inch. And then if you get your 2-inch, so you have to have your 6-inch before you can go for your 2-inch. 2-inch is the same thing you can do on Sked 80. So you get your max out. And then once you got your 2-inch, you don't have to do your 6 again as long as you maintain your 2. But if you lose your 2 or if it expires, you got to go back and do your 6 again. Right. And they just call it your initial 6 and then your max out 2. There's no A, B's or C's. And it's really confusing across the country because every province has their own testing procedures on pressure and their own words. So lots of times, Northern Territories use Alberta's pressure system. The Prairies have their own. Out East has a mix and the Maritimes has their own. So often Alberta welders will be like, I got my B pressure, and everyone's like, what's that? And it's like, it's funny because in Alberta, I don't think they teach that other provinces are different. They just think that everyone else has B pressure. Yeah, no idea.
No idea.
So
no idea.
It makes for confusing.
That is so strange.
And it's interesting that you test on an 8-inch 2G, 5G for your initial.
Yeah, it was either an 8-inch or a 6-inch.
Because an 8-inch is way easier than a 6.
While.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I'm like trying to think of with my hand measurement how big it was. It might have been a 6-inch. I try not to think about it. I passed it. That's all that matters. Okay, we're not looking back. We're not redoing it. We don't need to worry about it.
But you got to keep that 2-inch. You got to keep that small diameter, right? Like that's where it's at. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for again testing at the hall, I can just call up and say I'd like to test for this, and they'll tell me, okay, you can test next week on Tuesday. I show up, I test for it, and I have my ticket.
Yeah, and your welds, I'd imagine, are the same. They're going to be an F3 as 60, cellulose. F4 low hydrogen. F5, F6 is TIG and flux core. F40s are the Inconels. Then there's the duplexes and the stainlesses, the 22s, and I'd imagine those are all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same test. And also, like, again, different sites will specify if they want a specific other test that you test for. And so we have the practicing facility, show up 2 days before, practice for 2 days, do the test, head up for work. So,
and is there
pretty fortunate
do you have to pay union dues? Like, what are the benefits
Yes,
of being in the union? What do you get from the union for the people that don't know?
So, as a welder, the biggest benefit that you get is you get to use the practicing facility, and you don't have to go in and pay for time. You don't have to pay for material, and there is people there that are willing and like eager to train you and help you when you're having difficulties or you want to learn a new skill. So I can be, I look at the amount of dues that I've paid and the amount of material I've gone through, and I, because we work shutdown, so we have work 6 months, we're 6 months off. So I'd be in the hall just practicing. The amount of material I've gone through, man, I should be paying way more in dues. But that's one of the main things that it goes to. It's like, well, not the main thing, but it goes to our materials that we use. It goes to just upkeep in our buildings. It goes to paying their staff. And it goes towards our really, really good field benefits that were amazing. And I didn't know what benefits were when I joined the union. I didn't know what a pension was. Adulting was not the thing that I was focused on.
Well, not at 18 years old, right? Like,
no, it was just like, cool, I'm 18. I can, legally go to the bar now. And that was all that I cared about. Mom was like, oh my God, you got a pension? I'm like, what's that? So,
and it's a good pension. Really you guys are like $6 or $7 on the hour or something.
Yeah, it is really, we have a really, really amazing pension. So I'm very fortunate for that now that I'm, semi an adult and understanding what a pension is. So, yeah. And then it's also resources for training people. So training for our rigging courses, our job steward courses, all of that gets, is funded by our union dues.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. And it's always one of the things that has attracted me. And it's one of the strengths that unions bring to the industry in general, whether you're a union worker or not, is that the unions kind of set a standard for wages, pensions, benefits that the rest of the industry kind of has to follow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So every few years we go back to the drawing board. We get, our new contracts, whether they reinstate the current contract or they give us a whole brand new one. For our field work, our shop work is different. Each shop has their own contract. But yeah, that is one of the really, really nice things is that I know for a fact I'm getting paid what I should be getting paid, is that I'm getting paid the exact same as the man next to me, and that I don't have to raise my voice and go, I should be treated the same.
Yeah.
And another good thing is when you have a union is that as strong as ours, when you go to fight for things, once we're able to get our foot in the door and get what we want, other unions are able to kind of stick their toes in too and be able to get better options for their union members as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, that's true. And it's awesome. All right. This is a good time to take a break. We're going to take a quick break here for our sponsors and supporters. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about what is it that you actually do on the day-to-day. And I want to go back to the art and see if that's still a part of your world. So we're going to come back here with Riley McElroy from Calgary, Alberta, right after these messages here on the CWB Association podcast.
The CWB Association is new and improved and focused on you. We offer a free membership with lots of benefits to anyone interested in joining an association that is passionate about welding. We are committed to educating, informing, and connecting our workforce. Gain access to your free digital publication of the Weld magazine, free online training, conferences, and lots of giveaways. Reach out to your local CWB Association chapter today to connect with other welding professionals and share welding as a trade in your community. Build your career, stay informed, and support the Canadian welding industry. Join today and learn more at cwbassociation.org.
And we are back here on the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron, and I'm sitting here with Riley McElroy from Calgary, Alberta, who's a Boilermaker and a journey person, Red Seal Welder. So, Riley, you are a Boilermaker now, and to be a Boilermaker, I'm just trying to remember, do you have to be a welder to be a Boilermaker, or is there jobs in the Boilermakers that are non-welding?
No, so the Boilermakers is an actual trade itself. It's one of the actually original 5 trades that were created. Started off in, I believe it was England, over in the UK. And then when the Industrial Revolution happened, it spread out. And we kind of gained more
Sub-trades.
more scopes. Yeah, we kind of absorbed some other trades into it. And so the work that Boilermakers do is they do a lot of rigging, fitting, all the vessel work. So all the interior vessel work, the exterior vessel work, anything like that, that is what we do. We do a lot of work in refineries, pulp mills. We have work in the nukes. I'm trying to remember, shipyards as well.
Yeah, anything that's steam lines, small bore, small diameter piping, pressure vessels, and even non-pressure lines, I think are under your guys' scope. And I remember my dad explaining it to me, like, this is what a Boilermaker does. And I was like, I don't want to do that, because I didn't want to be a Boilermaker. And my dad was like, why?
The funniest thing about the Boilermakers is a lot of people don't, like, even Boilermakers themselves, they're like, I don't know how to describe it. I just am one. I have one buddy that was so tired of trying to explain it, he just lied and said he was a welder when people asked what he did, because he didn't know how to explain it. It's kind of a joke going around that it's hard to explain what we do, but once you know what we do, you know. Where was I going? I had a total, like, absolute brain fart there. I was like on a roll.
Yeah, you were talking about the UK. The UK, and there was trades and vessels.
Wow, that's embarrassing. My God, Riley, get it together. But the original question is, what exactly is a Boilermaker? So, again, it's its own trade ticket. Our school there's one school in Alberta. It's in Edmonton. It's at NAIT, and that is the only place in Alberta you can go to school for it. And in order to actually be a Boilermaker, like, have that trade ticket, you have to be a part of the union. Mm-hmm. So we kind of have a stronghold on that for kind of obvious reasons. But so as a welder in the union, I can backfill as a Boilermaker, but a Boilermaker can't back weld as a welder. And that's how we can do it in our province. I know a few other provinces, their Boilermakers do scaffolding. They do more than just what our, again, every province does it differently, which is why wouldn't we just make it cohesive across
a lot
the
of
board?
it has
to do the Red Seal.
Yeah, I know the answer for that. And the reason is because there's a lack of supporting trades in some places. So, for example, if there's a boom happening in Alberta and all the Boilermakers are tied up in Alberta, and all of a sudden there's a giant push for pressure vessels in Ontario, other trades will have to come in and backfill, which is not a happy time for unions, I know, because they don't like sharing work like that necessarily. Like, I mean, there's a scaffolding union. Scaffolders don't like hearing that other trades are picking up scaffolding work, right? Like, that's why we have a scaffolding union, but there's only X number of scaffolders in Canada, right? So it is tricky. I navigated my way through unions because specifically I was a stainless steel welder. I had all my stainless steel tickets, like from top to bottom. Like, every new stainless that would come out, I'd go get the ticket for it. TIG, MIG, stainless flux, or TIG, MIG, stick, and flux core, all processes.
Cool.
Then I would contact the unions and be like, hey, shutdown's coming up. Got any stainless work? And then I would get picked up on permit to go work with the unions. But that also doesn't make unions very happy when there's a whole bunch of permit workers coming out like me, right? So it is a very tricky world, like exactly where you were going, you know, like different provinces, even different jobs. I wouldn't even say provinces, like different jobs require different things. So I would come in, like, for your, you know, in the example you're talking about, if all the welder Boilermakers are busy and there's no Boilermakers left, then how do they complete the welding work? People like me coming from the outside with permits to weld, but then as soon as the job's done, we're like out. We're like, and we get no benefits and we get no pension or nothing, right? So,
yeah. So I've been on a few jobs where we've actually specifically, like, hired backfills, so that we didn't have another union come in for it, because we have your union guy who's backfilling for us to do this job, which I know is kind of frowned upon, but great guys. It was great for the guys who were on the tools with them because, like, you get to learn what they learn at their union, how their union works, and they also get to come and see ours and see how we work. And maybe they'll jump ship and come to us. There's possibility there, right? You got to really sell that pitch to them when you're working with them. Oh, your union does that? Oh no, you should come to ours.
Yeah, you never know. You never know which is where it's gonna go, right? Like I said, I worked with 2 unions, well, 3 in my life, and I didn't stay with any of them. And it would really frustrate my union friends, being like, "Why? Why do you leave? This is the best place to be in the world."
It's everyone has their own stuff going on in their own lives, and for some people, it just doesn't work out that way, right? A lot of our work is traveling, unless you're in Edmonton where all of our shops are, or you're in Calgary and we have one pressure shop here, which is where I'm working. So if it doesn't suit your lifestyle, then I don't see it being, coming and joining us just because we're not in there. I mean, you could come and join us and then try and convert your shop into a union shop.
But you would have to need the work for it, right? You'd need that full-time work coming in the door, which is tricky, right?
Yeah.
So what's
a lot more hoops involved.
What's your best skill? Like, what are you best at? Like, what's the work that comes in the door? The foremans look at it and they say, "That's Riley's job. That one's going straight to Riley." What is it that's your niche work in your skill set?
Sweeping the floor. I'm really good at it.
Oh, stop. That's different.
Tube and welding. So where I'm at is exchanger industry. So we do a lot of hand welding for all of our exchangers, all the tubes that come out the end that have to be welded. Roll welds. So it's not a fillet around the tube. You kind of eat at the tube and you roll the weld down to the inside of it. That's my favorite. That's honestly the thing that I'm best at. I'm really quick and it's all TIG. So it's beautiful. It's clean. I'm not dirty. I don't stink when I get in my car to go home. I am happy.
Sounds like these are new ones, not repair ones either.
Yes. So being in the shop,
because repairing those tubes sucks. Because you got to cut out the ends.
I've never done it.
Slide them out. Slide new ones in. Hope they're the right length. That's a deadly job, and sometimes there's like hundreds of them.
Like we just got. I think this one was like 10 feet in diameter in the center.
How many tubes was there?
I wouldn't want to do the repairs on that. I'll weld it when it's clean and brand new. I am not doing the repairs on that.
And is it mild steel? Is it stainless? What's the material?
It is stainless. It's either stainless, carbon, or duplex. Are kind of the 3 ones that we really do. Carbon, not a huge fan of. Honestly, duplex. Like I know some people really hate it, but once you've done it enough, you just get so used to it and you know exactly how it's going to react when you're welding it. You're like, I got this.
I liked welding duplex. I thought it wasn't harder to weld than any other stainless, really, but it doesn't pass as often. That's what I didn't like about it. It's like, oh, that looks beautiful. That's fantastic. Then they x-ray it and they're like, actually, no, that's terrible. It's like, what? What do you mean? It was perfect. What are you talking about?
So for us, when we do that tube bend test is we weld this kind of mock little jig up and then they cut it in half. So they LPI it first and then they cut it in half. And then if it passes all that, you're good. So again, because it's the tube sheet.
And LPI is what for the people listening?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Liquid penetrant testing. So what that does is they spray a red dye on first and it seeps into any pinholes, any cracks, porosity, slag. It'll also stick to that. And then what you do once you spray it on, you let it sit, you wash it off with water or a special cleaner, and then you spray it with a white chalk kind of developer. And then the little cracks will come out in these red lines, or the little pinholes will be these red dots. And then, you kind of messed up and you got to go clean it out and re-weld it. It's not a fun time when it comes back.
And it smells terrible.
I don't ever smell it. I've never noticed that.
Really? The red dye? Like I have some in my garage because I do some small gig work in my garage. So I have to do my own LPI in my shop. And whenever I spray the dye, people like my wife will be like, "What is that smell?" It's like it's a pretty strong smell. Maybe you have burnt your nose out because it's pretty strong.
Probably. I've worked in the cokers for like 7 months straight, man. I could have burnt those nose hairs right out. Smell? Not a thing. Taste? Probably not. No, I've never noticed it had a smell. I mean, I've worked in far worse environments, but I've never noticed it had a smell.
Oh, maybe you know what? Maybe they made a safer one now. Who knows? Maybe what I have is a bunch of old deadly stuff that they're like, don't use that. Like,
just keep using it. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm seeing 3 of you, but everything's fine.
So you said the shop that you're in is one of the only shops the Boilermakers has in Calgary. Is there still a lot of other Boilermaker work around the city of Calgary outside of your shop?
Medicine Hat. I can't remember the name of the plant off the top of my head right now. We have work down there. We don't. Red Deer, Joffrey. We have work around Joffrey.
So it's pretty specific to areas and to industries, right? It's not.
Yeah.
You don't have just Boilermakers rolling around on trucks picking up work. No.
No. So we have. There's specific contractors, and they bid for the job. And if they're a union contractor, they call us Boilermakers, union pipe fitters, union scaffolders, all of that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of how it works for us. We go where the contractors pick up work.
Yeah.
So
do you ever go on site anymore, or do you want to?
Part of me really does, because I've learned so much now that I feel like I'm a little better rounded at what I do. But I also really like sleeping in my own bed and eating my own food. You know, not having to do laundry in a communal laundry area. Really enjoy being back at home.
Yeah.
I think I have to go do it maybe in a year or two, depending on how things go here at the shop.
Yeah.
But
have you done much traveling with the Boilermakers, like outside of Alberta? Because I mean, that's one of the things with union work is that you get to travel if you want. You know, have you picked up other province work or in the States or anywhere?
No. So as a journeyman, it's really easy. I could just go pull a slip in Saskatchewan if I wanted to work in Saskatchewan or BC or Ontario, Manitoba, anywhere. Journeyman's super easy. As an apprentice, I would have to take my blue book, and I would have to. And that's also one of the great things about the union is I don't handle my blue book at all. I didn't touch it. I would touch it to sign it and send it back to them.
Yeah, Alberta was one of the last.
All the hours, everything.
Alberta was one of the last provinces to still use a blue book. Every other province has gone digital like 10 years ago.
Are you serious? Really? So how is it that
Actually, I think Alberta's digital now.
How does that work?
I think it's, you just submit it electronically. It just goes into your system and then you can look it up on your account anytime.
Oh my God.
Because I remember when I was teaching at Sask Poly, I used to teach welding for like 8 years here in Saskatchewan. I'd have Alberta students come in and be like, all right, here's my blue book for you to go through. And I'd be like, what the is this thing? Like, you actually wrote in this, like, with your fingers? Like, what is this?
I can't believe that we haven't done that yet. Because, like, just thinking about it, the amount of people that have to handle it, the amount of times that it has to get mailed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
I think
God.
it switched. Actually, I was at a meeting this year or last year maybe, but I think it's changed now. I think Alberta is switching everything to digital. Like, I think it's all going to be online now, which makes it way easier to travel and to look it up and to find it. Like,
oh yeah, well that makes it way easier. Anyway, back when, you know, the dinosaur age when I had to deal with mine.
Yeah,
you know,
back in the old days.
I'd be up to date with everything. Back in the old days, right? You know, years ago. But like, what? I can't believe that. But you know, Alberta never got behind that. That it took them that long.
Hey,
to get
Alberta's
behind
a
it.
stubborn province. They're stubborn, and you know it. You know it.
Oh, yeah, I'm not denying that. I'm well aware of it.
But have you ever wanted to go work in another province?
Yeah, I've wanted to do so. Kayla being one of my mentors, she always talked about the shipyards.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always wanted to go and do that. I've just honestly been too scared. I have family up in Fort McMurray. So if anything ever went wrong, I have people, immediate family there that could help me. So that was kind of always why I sticked around Fort McMurray. And as much as I hated camp, I liked not having to worry about finding a place to rent and going grocery shopping. I would just show up.
Food's ready every
I'd
morning.
have my own room.
Yeah.
Yeah. As much as food sucked some days, you know, you could always get away with eating chocolate cake for dinner. Like, who's going to stop you? Really? So that's kind of why I never did those traveling jobs as an apprentice, is the blue book. And at the end of the day, I don't want to be dealing with that much stuff.
Yeah, but you're young. You're young. You got a whole career ahead of you. Like, I would definitely recommend doing some travel work. It's been and just watching how, like, learning how other areas do your same job is always interesting. Like, even in Saskatchewan, for me to go out into the mines and see how they do potash mining and doing the shutdowns for potash mining, the different machines, the different equipment, the different things. And then you realize, like, oh, this is kind of the same machine that they did for this job, just a little bit different. Or this is kind of like that, but a little bit different. You know, it's always super fun.
So what other places would you recommend somebody work and try, instead of, like, say if they were in a shop for their whole apprenticeship and into their journeyman and they wanted something different, what would you recommend? So
I would recommend, first of all, the things that you build in your shop, where do they go? Right. So if you're building things that go into things, check out where those things go to and see if you can work there. So that's what I did. I was working in a shop for my apprenticeship and for lots of my younger time, building things for mining. So I was always building things for mining. And I was like, finally one day I was like, got my Red Seal, and I was like, I want to know where these things go. Like, I'm building all this stuff in a shop all the time, and it's fun and it's clean and I'm learning so much stuff, but where does it go? So I started chasing down those jobs. Like, when's the shutdown for the place where this thing went? And so I started picking up mining work for those shops. And then through those mining jobs, you start talking to the people at the shutdowns, and they're like, oh, you should try to get in at this place. They a really cool place. And then other welders, around the coffee, the lunchroom, they'll be like, oh, if you get a chance to do this or that, or, and that network, I find, is how you really figure out where you should be, because other welders will tell you, what's up, and you can tell by how they like their job or where they've been as advice. Yeah. Right. So, like, if you're doing a lot of exchangers, and they're shipping all the time to Ontario, well, maybe pull a slip and see if you can see where that thing and be on a part of the install crew for that same thing that you always build, right? Because then that you get to see that end of it, and that's really fun. And you're more confident because you actually know what that thing is already, right? It's not like you're completely blind, right?
I mean, that was part of the thing that I did really enjoy about the shutdown, is that you could jump around, even just like on one site, like Suncor base plant, you could jump around and work on so many different things. Yeah. I really did enjoy that kind of changing pace, where one day you're here, the next day you're there. You're doing rigging one day, you're grinding indications the next. I like that kind of flip flop. Some people don't.
I do. I do. Yeah. And you get good at everything.
Interesting. Yeah. Yes. It makes you really versatile, which, like, again, being in the shop where I'm at right now, I do for the most part, the same thing. Then some days they're like, oh, well, we're going to test you for this. And then it's like, okay, well, here's a little bit of change of pace for a bit.
Well, and shops all inherently have that. I like shop work. I ended up climbing through shops. That's how I ended up getting into management, is through shops, which is why I didn't stick around to welding or in unions. A lot of people are like, why didn't you stick around with unions? And for me, it's because I wanted to get into management. So, to get into management, you kind of have to get out of unions, because it's really long road to get into management at unions. Like, it's a long line. You know what I mean? And I was too ambitious. I wanted to climb faster. So that was my shtick. But if you can have the opportunities to learn more skills, then that's where the game's at, right?
Yeah.
So what's up? Sorry. In the beginning of this conversation, when you talked about how the whole start of this journey for you for welding came from art, Where's art
Yes.
been all this time? You still artsy? You still do stuff on the side? Is there an art side of Riley that comes out, or did you have to leave it aside?
You know, that was one of the things that I also really liked when I joined the union, was having that much time off to focus on art.
Mm-hmm.
But I spent all that time decompressing and dealing with my body with all of its aches and pains at my young age. So I can't imagine how bad it's going to be when I get older. So I kind of left it, and I haven't touched it
At all?
I've been really bad. No, the last time I went and touched it, because again, I'm so used to working on these, you know, with
Mm-hmm.
these really high quality big machines. And then I go to my garage and like I'm spoiled. I know I'm spoiled. I'm aware of it. I have a plasma cutter. Like I'm not even gonna lie. I got a plasma cutter and a welder and all the tools you could ever need. My dad even has a sign in his garage that says, "He who dies with the most tools wins."
Mm-hmm.
So
Just
I
no
have
time.
everything that I could need. I don't have that passion for it anymore. I've lost that spark
inspiration,
and I
yeah.
want it back. Like I've just lost it. Like last time I went into the garage, it was just really frustrating because like, you know, I'm used to using these big machines and I do this to the big machine and it does that. And I do it to my little machine and it just goes out to lunch. So you're like, I don't have the patience for this. So I'd always get frustrated, throw something, and then I go back into the house. So that's kind of how it went. I'm hoping, you know, come this year, I'll be able to get back into it. I've just been focusing on the main career.
Well, how long have you had your Red
Sounds
Seal
really
for now?
Less than a year.
Yeah, so you got time, girl. You got lots of time. Like it's not like you're in a rush, right?
No.
Have you thought about any other Red Seals that you'd like to chase? Like, where do you see yourself in like 5 years, 10 years? 'Cause like dual tickets is a big thing now. I'm triple sealed, so I have 2 Red Seals and a blue seal, and that helped me lots in my career. And I see that becoming more and more popular now. Even people on the show, more and more often, people that are coming on the show have 2 Red Seals, which 10 years ago was unheard of. And now it's like more and more common. Have you ever thought about pursuing another seal or another even avenue within the Boilermakers?
So I was thinking of doing my blue seal.
Mm-hmm.
And then recently I started looking into getting my bachelor's degree in education to be a welding teacher, welding instructor.
Awesome.
So I was looking into that. I've also been looking into NDT.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't figured it out. I'm not going to leave welding until I feel like I have accomplished enough so that in 10 years, if I decide to come back to it, I feel competent enough to be able to do that.
Oh, for sure. I've left welding twice in my career. Twice I've walked away being like, I'm never touching another rod. I'm done with this. And twice I came back. So like, I mean, I wasn't able to leave for very long.
Seems like you have a pattern there.
Yeah. But it's like, it's hard to find another career that gives you these opportunities, right? Like, that's the thing I always explain to people. It's like, you know, if you want to be an engineer, be a weld engineer. If you want to be a salesperson, be a salesperson for welding. Like, I mean, there's just every possible job exists in this trade, right? Like,
well, that's a great thing about trades in general. It's kind of like your stepping stone. It's your foundation.
Mhm.
You can go so many different avenues. You can go up into management. You can go into engineering with it because now like you have that practical application. You're not just going, I went to school for this. I don't actually know how the real process works, but we're going with it. Like, again, I'm not saying that they're not educated. They are highly educated, but you have that other better understanding to back you up
Mhm.
and also to help pay for school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So yeah, I just think the trades are a great foundation and there's so many different ways you could go.
Well,
Like at any point in time.
I hope you get into teaching. It's one of the things that we see at the top level is really suffering in Canada is we don't have enough teachers and we really don't have enough female teachers with solid field experience, right? So I would, you're still a bit fresh to be a teacher, but when you look at 5-6 years down the road or 10 years down the road, I didn't get into teaching till I was like 37. So I was already almost 20 years into welding, but it is something that's needed is good teachers. And I know you understand how important having a good mentor is, it really changes the way you look at the career, having solid mentorship, you know?
Yeah. And I want to be what Kayla was for me. I want to be able to be that female representation for other, women that want to get into the trades. And I know it's hard to get into and stay as a teacher in the, for teaching trades, because it's so underfunded. You look at teachers and they're like, we can't afford to buy rod. Like, we're limiting students to like 3 rods for 1 weld because we don't have the money for it.
Yeah, in the high schools for sure. In the colleges, not so much. In the colleges, there's lots of money.
No, not the colleges, but
high
schools and stuff. They're really suffering.
It's tough.
So,
the CWB Association, that's one of the things we do, is we fund high schools for consumables because they don't get enough from public funding through the government. So, or the provincial government. So one of the things we do across Canada is help with electrodes and rod ovens and grinders or whatever it is a class will need, because it is brutally underfunded. And it's kind of it's a weird conversation when you hear people being like, we need more trades. We need more trades, but then we don't fund trades. So and
you wonder why you can't get teachers and educators to stick around. You're not providing the funding. I know one teacher, he sold his car, bought a truck just to haul the material from the metal shop because it was cheaper than paying them to cut it and deliver it.
Yeah.
That's how he was cutting costs, just to have materials for his students.
And that shouldn't be the teacher's job.
No, absolutely not. It's ridiculous. We're saying we need all these welders. The best way to get them is fresh out of high school. You could train them. There's so much incentive behind that, yet we're not actually backing that up with the funding it needs and deserves.
Yeah.
So, and I get it. Everything's kind of underfunded, but you say one thing, but don't do the obvious. It's kind of frustrating.
Well, hopefully you can make a change. I know the Boilermakers are doing a lot of great work, and especially with the representation of newcomers, people of color, women, Indigenous, the Boilermakers are really making a big difference. I talk to Kayla pretty regularly, and Jamie Bevan, they're amazing people that are constantly pushing for more stuff, right? So it's good.
Yeah, and as well as the weld rodeo that we host with the hall is amazing. I volunteered this year. Absolutely amazing. You see all these kids come in and they're just so excited to be there. So excited to have this opportunity. I don't know when it's happening in 2024, but I don't think anything will top this year, 2023. It was May the Arc Force Be With You was the theme. So it was all Star Wars themed, and they literally had volunteers come in. I think how it happened was they reached out to us because they heard we were doing it. They were volunteers who were cosplayers for Star Wars. Nice. So they showed up, everybody got pictures with them. It was so cool. It was so cool. I don't know how we're ever going to top that.
Well, I wish I would have known that. I have a ex-welding student who's a huge cosplayer now, famous. She would have been awesome there. Yeah. She got through welding, finished welding, and then is a professional cosplayer. And she uses her welding background to make cosplay gear for people around the world. And
that is so cool.
Yeah, she's a very, very cool person. But, do me a solid and send me the info if you can find it later, in an email for that, because I'd like to attend. I'm in Saskatchewan. I can just rip over to Calgary anytime. And I would love to be a part of the Weld Rodeo next year and see what's going on there.
Yeah, for sure. As soon as I know the date, I think, because again, we try to schedule it so it's not around skills so that we can have all the other students attend. So I will check in and see when that is. I believe actually Kayla will most likely email you about it.
Okay, all right.
But we'll get you out here. It's a really great, amazing time.
You brought up skills. Are you involved with skills at all?
So I competed in skills when I was in grade 11, I believe it was. Grade 11 or grade 12. And actually my really close friend competed. I didn't place, but he got first place for Calgary area. And then he got sent up to Edmonton. So really proud of him for what he's done. But I didn't even place. I didn't even get third. I didn't get a participation trophy. I mean,
you tried your hardest.
Again,
yeah.
Grade 11 me. Where are our expectations? All I know is, my welds have been better than some of the people I've seen in the fields weld. So
snap.
Kind of says something, but it's not that bad. just squint, tilt your head. It's fine. It'll pass.
As long as it passes X-ray, that's all that matters.
Right. It can look as ugly as long as it passes.
Awesome. Well, let's wrap this interview up. I got a couple questions just to finish it off.
Yeah.
We talked about, like you trying to get more involved with supporting women and being a mentor. What are some of the opportunities you're seeing right now for yourself in terms of being a mentor and volunteer in your area?
So I volunteer regularly with our union hall whenever Kayla gives me the call saying, hey, are you free this day? I'd love you to come do this with me. I've done the youth hiring fair with her. I've volunteered at schools to talk. What else have I done? I've done quite a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I like being able to kind of give back, considering how much the mentors have given to me. I want to be able to give that to somebody else.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So
And
I try.
yeah, it's good. It's good. And that's, volunteering and helping is the gateway to success. I keep saying it on the show. People ask me all the time, like, Max, how did, some short brown guy from Regina get to be the director at the CWB? It's like, well, volunteer, get involved, be a part of your community. That's the way to do it, right?
Yeah. I think my favorite volunteering event that I've done was Careers Next Generation. Women's and Trades.
I know that group. I did an interview with a guy from there. It sounded like Next Generation sounds like a really cool place or group.
Man, group. It was so cool. So they organized kind of these, I believe it was 3 days or 2 days where it was this all women's group went and did I think it was carpentry and a little bit of electrician, but they came to the hall to learn about boilermaking and welding. So it was all female. Like all the female Boilermakers and welders volunteers, it was all females coming in. And it was just amazing to see that many women in one room who were interested in the trades. I can't even describe the feeling of that.
Well, keep your eyes on. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm so used to only in my shop, I'm the only girl on the floor for days and afternoons.
Yeah.
I'm so used to just being the only girl. So when you get to be around other women who love the trades as much, it's just there's that feeling. It's just hey, I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
We're great.
Keep your eyes peeled for a program called Jill of All Trades. It's coming out of Ontario. They've ran it in Ontario 2 years or 3 years now, but I know they're spreading across Canada, and I know they're planning on doing an event in Calgary, and it's huge. They're funded by Home Depot, major big sponsors, and I participated in a Jill of All Trades event. We helped sponsor it in Ontario, in Cambridge, and it was 10,000 females representing all different trades, only women from grade 8 and up. It was huge. It was amazing,
Cool.
and it was so awesome. And I know that they're trying to spread this across Canada, so. Definitely the Boilermakers, I'm sure, will be involved with the Jill of All Trades in Calgary, but it's a really neat program, and it's all women with sponsored by women mentors, women leaders, CEOs, business owners, and it's very cool. Yeah, Jill of All Trades.
Jill of All Trades. Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah. And for the last question for you, any shout outs, any words of wisdom, any if there was a young Riley coming up and you could meet yourself, what would you give for advice?
Well, there's two things. There's always the classic fake till you make it. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Do it. Okay. Just keep going. It's called going through it.
Mm-hmm.
Means you'll get out on the other side. You just got to make it through it. And another one, whenever I do weld testing, I had a very close friend tell me this. You've done it once. You just got to do it one more time.
Yeah.
And it's seriously, something as simple as that. And that has helped me every time I have to do a weld test. You've done it once. You just got to do it one more time.
That's good advice. Because it's the nerves that kill you on the weld test. You know how to do the weld. It's just the nerves that kill you.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he told me that, I was like, that's genius. It's something so simplistic, and it works every time for me.
Perfect. Awesome. Any shout outs to anybody?
Oh God, put on the spot. I guess, the Boilermakers to all the mentors that I have had and to the future mentors. And yeah, I think that's all I can think of.
Awesome. Well, I've had a ton of fun with you here, Riley. I hope you had a good time on the show, and
I did.
thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
taking
much.
time during your break.
Well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity.
You bet. And for all the people that have been listening, make sure you check out if you're in Alberta and you're interested in being a Boilermaker, check out the Boilermakers Union 146. Just check them out online. Just Google Boilermakers Alberta. It'll come up, and all the information's on there. They got a great website. And Riley, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, for the people that have been downloading the show, thank you so much for supporting the CWB Association podcast. My voice is just about gone. I'm just limping through the end here, but I really appreciate. Keep downloading, keep sharing, and keep commenting, and let us know if you have any ideas for the show, any people you want to, get on here, stories. Send them our way. We're always looking. You can always email at us at info@cwbassociation.org. or find us on our website, cwbassociation.org. Have a great time, and we'll stay tuned for the next show. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed the show.